So increasingly, students are generating project proposals that become capstone workshop projects. And this next one about a cattle market in Argentina is one of these projects generated by one of our students. So I'd like to ask our next presenter to give us the presentation.
Thanks for coming, everyone. My name is Isaac. I'm going to present the Liniers Cattle Market project on behalf of my capstone team. This is a cattle market located in the heart of the city of Buenos Aires, Argentina. It's a market that's polluting a stream that's channeled directly below it and causing environmental, social, and public health problems for the nearby residents. And I'm going to talk about our recommendations and the work that we did to help make these operations more sustainable. Our agenda tonight, I'll give a quick context because it's important to understanding how we approach this project, go through our methodology we used, and ultimately our recommendations. Beef is an extremely important commodity, both culturally and economically, to the entire country. They supply 7% of the world's beef demand. There's 50 million head of cattle at any given time in the province, in the entire country. This market that we're talking about tonight is the biggest market within that system. It's responsible for 15% of all cattle transactions in the country, and it serves as a national price setter for the livestock industry in Argentina. Every morning, auctioneers come, they buy, they sell, they trade cattle there, and we're going to talk about the operations tonight and some of the pollution it's causing to the stream. It's a real sustainability problem. And this slide really captures just how big the sustainability problem is. This is a site of the 10 most polluted sites in the world. The yellow star on the bottom left, that's the site of the cattle market. It's by the Matanza-Riachuelo River Basin. This river basin is comparable with Chernobyl, Ukraine, the site of the biggest nuclear disaster in all of world history. So it's highly polluted. Although there are other industries also contributing to that pollution, the market plays a substantial part in it. On the left here, you'll see a picture of the market in the middle of the city. It's an 80-acre site. 2.9 million people live in the city of Buenos Aires, right around this cattle market. 2,500 families are supported through direct and indirect employment. On the right, you'll see the location of the cattle market on top of the Sildania stream. This stream flows directly into the Riachuelo River Basin. That Riachuelo River, that's the river that we referenced on the previous slide. That's one of the most polluted sites in the world. You'll notice in this picture, which is just a printout from Google Maps, that there's no stream. The stream is channeled under the market, and the pollution from the manure is going directly into the stream via 19 discharge points, which are basically just holes in the ground with sewer grates on top of them, and the manure is being dumped directly into it. When I talk about manure, I mean a lot. This is an actual picture taken by our project manager on her visit to Buenos Aires. It was a couple hours after it rained. 400 trucks come into this site daily, bringing with them 6,500 head of cattle on average a day, generating 50 tons of manure. That's enough to fill an Olympic-sized swimming pool in less than a week. These pictures represent some of the impacts of this pollution. Here you have on the left a picture of the Sildania stream. You'll notice it has no visibility. It's rancid, it's stagnant, it's become essentially a sewer. On the right, you'll see a picture taken after a rain event. Periodic flooding occurs in the region, mostly due to outdated stormwater infrastructure. When that occurs, all this polluted water comes right into the residential communities. We're working directly with the city of Buenos Aires, which is part of a broader organization called ACUMAR, made up of other provincial and federal government officials. They are tasked with dealing with the environmental and social impacts of the stream and the river basin. They approached Columbia University through our project manager, and that's how this capstone project came about. And we've been working with them to help them form solutions to make the operations more sustainable to stop the pollution. In going about this project, we left no stone unturned. They asked us specifically to analyze water data from the last 3 years. They wanted us to show that there were certain elements in the water that were downstream, proving that they're causing pollution, such as fecal coliform, phosphorus, nitrogen. We analyzed over 100 international cases. We looked at manure management practices around the world. We looked at concentrated animal feeding operations here in the US, because they face similar manure management issues. We conducted interviews on the ground with several senior level officials, and again, our project manager visited the site, came back, took pictures, briefed us. Our key findings are as follows. Obviously, there's insufficient manure management. There's also a lack of regulatory enforcement. As stated, the market has an important economic impact on the city and on the country in general. And because of that, they're not incentivized to listen to enforcement. They're not incentivized to act on regulation. There's also an existing pilot program. That's the picture on the bottom right. It's an existing geotube program. It's inefficient. What it deals with is about 30% of the effluent that's found on site. It processes it, but it's not enough. Still, we wanted to work within the confines of that system so as not to expend capital on additional infrastructure items that they already spent money on. What we've proposed is a comprehensive manure management system that includes a suite of solutions that our client could either choose to implement individually or in conjunction with one another. They follow 3 strategies: an effluent management strategy, which is the liquid waste, a solid manure management strategy, and a policy context to make those technical recommendations possible. Under the effluent management, we'll talk about it more on the next slide, but the heart of it is our wastewater treatment system. And secondarily, we also recommended a vegetative treatment area which would deal with effluent when the system reaches capacity, and it's a plant-based natural way of remediating the waste. We also recommended a stormwater system, which consists of a series of channels and rooftops to make sure that the effluent and rainwater is getting to where we want it to go. Under solid manure management, we had 2 recommendations, a manure to energy system and a composting recommendation. And in the policy context, for regulatory enforcement, we recommended they implement fines and other ways of making enforcement stronger. We also recommended they lower the allowable limits of certain pathogens and nutrients allowed in the water. The heart of our recommendation, again, is our wastewater treatment system. Under this system, liquid effluent from the operations would flow into a pre-treatment area. This would separate liquids and solids via gravity. It would then move into a primary treatment. You'll remember that picture from earlier in the presentation. That's the existing geotube. We're going to utilize that. And this further separates liquids from solids via pumped filtration. It then moves into a sequencing batch reactor. This utilizes a biological process whereby unwanted pathogens and nutrients are removed from the wastewater. At that point, the water is essentially gray water and can be used for operations to clean trucks and other purposes. Throughout this process, every step of the way, residual sludge is going to be generated. That residual sludge will then be transferred to our solid manure management system. We could use it to either create energy via our manure to energy system, or we could utilize it for compost. It's a closed loop system. We started with 3 problems. We had a lack of manure management practice, we had a lack of regulatory enforcement, and we also had an existing pilot program that was already in place. We worked within the confines of that program to create recommendations that stopped the market from polluting the stream. But in doing so, we also found a way to utilize valuable resources that were found on site in the form of compost, gray water, energy. So in this way, we feel we've added additional value. In terms of implementation, we've also provided our client with a range of cost of what each part of this recommendation would need. And I'm happy to report that this project has also received some limited press on the ground in Argentina. And via that channel, the World Bank, which is working on updating stormwater infrastructure in the region, contacted us through our client and will be present at our client presentation next week and is interested in hearing more about these recommendations and how they could be implemented. Thank you very much. Questions?
Poor cows, what can I say? I have two questions. One is, why didn't you talk about manure to energy a bit more? And what does that mean, biogas and et cetera? So can you talk more about it? And
Yeah.
second, so you said cultural. So I'm a vegetarian, so I wonder if there is any type of, and we also know what cattery does to CO2, and there are studies done about how they pollute the atmosphere. So any recommendation in terms of cultural change, so people start eating less meat, to be exact? So thank you.
Thank you. I'll answer the second one first. The average person in Argentina consumes 136 pounds of beef a year. It's outside the scope of our project to try and change that. We're working on we're working on the operations of the market. Yeah, but it is fair enough. It's an emissions problem. It's a methane emissions problem, which is a more potent greenhouse gas than carbon dioxide. So it is a problem in the country, and with 50 million head of cattle at any given time, it's something they need to look at. And manure is not just a problem at this market, it's a problem for the entire region. And when there's excess manure that can't be handled via land management practices, it goes into nearby streams. So this isn't the only problem stemming from the beef industry in Argentina, no doubt, point well taken. In terms of the manure to energy system, they could use the energy for one of two purposes. They could either generate biogas, and they could utilize the biogas on site, or they could use the biogas to run a generator, essentially spin a turbine, creating electricity. We've done cost estimates for the system, and we've also done electricity generation estimates. We estimate it'll produce about 2 million kilowatt hours per year, which is enough to utilize on-site, and in addition provide electricity for roughly 200 to 300 homes in the area. It's a regulated market, and because of that, their only option in terms of selling it for distribution would be to sell it back to the utility. It's perhaps a longer conversation. The electricity in Argentina is very cheap. It's about 0.386 cents per kilowatt hour, which is one of the cheapest in all the Americas, with the exception of maybe Quebec, which is about 3.5 cents, hydroelectric. The only difference is it's at that cost because the government highly subsidizes it. So the true cost of energy is higher. One of the things, I'll just say one last thing on this question, is you said to talk more about it, right? The last thing is that our client asked us, the city of Buenos Aires asked us, how much of a subsidy would we need to provide to make this economical for the market itself? So we provided a figure to our client that they could use as to provide an incentive to the client, which would generate a payback in about 3.5 years. Without the subsidy, it's about 12 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Nice job.